Hey everybody, welcome back to the Captain's Coffee. I'm David, and today we're going to do something just a little bit different. Recently, my good friend Josh from the Roasters Roundtable podcast, he came up for a visit. We hung out, we talked coffee, and we did a roast walkthrough video with the Fresh Roast SR800 for his vlog. Now, I know we already have lots of guides and in-depth walkthroughs with the SR800, but I thought this one offered a bit of a different perspective. So we usually focus so much on the numbers, the adjustments we're making, when we're making them, it's easy to lose track of why we're making them in the first place. So with this walkthrough, we intentionally left most of the numbers out, and instead it's more like I'm thinking out loud about my roast plan, the cup I'm looking for, and then the on-the-fly adjustments I make in order to make that happen. So I hope you find this helpful. I hope it's useful for you when you're roasting at home and getting the cup that you're looking for, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking.
So David, we just looked at all your beans in the warehouse, and now you're going to take me through an in-depth roasting session. Now, can you tell me why you recommend the Fresh Roast SR800?
Absolutely. It's such a great price point. It's pretty affordable as far as roasters go for home use. It's a great size. So we don't do a huge amount of volume. And what's the worst, when you mess up a batch of coffee, you're stuck with a whole bunch of beans you got to throw away. At a half a pound, each pound gives us 2 chances.
For sure.
It's not too much, not too little.
Okay.
Also, it's crazy modular. You can get the extension tube, which really improves things. You can add some things of your own, like this bean temperature probe that I've installed that now feeds through a thermometer, and we can use artisan. It's just really adaptable. Lots of options. Man.
So all of this stuff just enables you to dial your coffee in way better than if it was to come stock.
Absolutely. Yeah. But stock is a great place to start.
For sure.
If you're operating on a budget and you want to give it a shot.
Okay, awesome. So you introduced me to an Ethiopian Sidama Natural, and you're going to take me through roasting it. I know I had a couple questions about how to pull out some berry and some fruity flavors, and you're going to show us how to do that, right?
Absolutely. That's always the first question. When folks want help bringing out what they want in the coffee, I'm like, what are you looking for? You know, are you looking for florality? Are you looking for fruit, berry? Or are you trying to pull out chocolate?
For sure.
Is it too bright? Is it too sweet?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Awesome.
That's the first question. What do you want out of the coffee?
Awesome. So let's dive right in, man.
Absolutely. And since we're looking to bring out the fruit, the blueberry, the blackberry, that specifically, I'm going to stick to a fairly light roast.
Okay.
I'm going to stop it pretty quickly.
Okay.
Particularly with Ethiopian Naturals, I find 45 seconds to even a minute under second crack or lighter.
Okay.
Sorry, first crack.
Right.
So we're only 30 seconds to a minute into development.
Okay.
That's super quick, very light. Sounds too light to some people, but if we're going fast, if we're moving quickly, and we got lots of momentum in the roast, that's going to give us plenty enough development to still get a fully sweet coffee that's focused on those fruits and those berries.
Awesome. Let's do it. All right, David, we're getting ready to get started. I'm a super beginner, right? So treat me like I just started. What am I doing?
You bet. First thing we got to do, load the beans, right? So the load in the top, if you'll hang on to the chaff collector here.
Chaff collector.
That's right. Got 225 grams of our beans, the Ethiopia Sidama Natural. 225 grams, about 8 ounces.
Half
a pound.
Okay, awesome.
So I like to start with the fan really high, Good agitation from the beans. Make sure they're good and moving. And then we can add heat into the system once I'm sure they're good and moving. And that's what my typical approach is. I start at fan 9, heat 1, and then slowly build into the heat after that first minute or so. Easiest way to build heat into this system is to lower the fan, So when hot air is going over the beans slower, it spends more time in contact, there's more heat in the system. So fan starts high, slows down as the beans can take less and less agitation and still get moving nice and evenly.
Okay, awesome.
All right, so just make sure I've got Artisan here ready to go for us. And they're all recording, and here we go.
Let's do it. Oh, yeah.
So lots of movement early on here.
Right.
I like to see this. Even though I could turn the fan down now, because there's plenty of movement, I want to give the beans a minute or so to kind of acclimate to the heat. I don't want to shock them right away, you know?
So, explain to people that have never used this machine before, is it the extension tube that is causing the beans to move higher and higher?
Yeah, so the extension tube helps us sort of funnel and channel the air. Right? Kind of direct it a little better, make it a little more efficient. So we're at about 300 degrees in the chamber. We're at about 135 degrees on the beans, the probe inside. Got a nice amount of room, but I'm going to go ahead and start pulling the fan down. We're about a minute in. So we got plenty of movement in there.
Right.
And I always keep an eye on my temperature of the air going into the fan. And those two numbers, your chamber temperature and your bean temperature, those are more important than anything else.
Right.
Keep this higher, but not too high.
Okay.
Don't let them get too close or you stall out the roast.
Awesome. Got you.
All right. So now I'm going to drop our fan one more time.
Now, how much of a difference is it deviation temperature-wise with each adjustment per fan?
That's hard to say because it's going to depend on how quickly and how well your beans are absorbing that heat.
Right.
Some beans are a little different. I like just to keep, that's why this deviation between the chamber temp and the bean temp, I like to keep an eye on.
Right.
How quickly are they spreading or coming together?
Okay.
And a bit of that's intuitive.
Right.
So some practice makes that easier and easier to spot.
Right.
So again, we've still got plenty of motion in there. Our chamber's at about 350 degrees.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and drop the fan one more time.
Awesome.
And remember, the most efficient way to add heat into this system is to slow the fan down.
For sure.
Yep.
Now, what phase are we in right now with the beans?
We're still in the drying phase.
Okay.
So essentially, at this point, we're trying to ramp the beans up.
Right.
We don't want to ramp them too slowly. We're trying to build momentum into the system.
Right.
Without scorching the beans.
Okay, makes sense.
Exactly. That's why you'll see I could drop the fan way sooner, but I don't want to build too much heat into the system.
Makes sense.
And scorch the beans.
Okay.
So we still got plenty of movement, and I'm now at fan 6 from 9. I've still got room to drop this fan one more time. Now see, this is what I really like to see as I start to get to this point in the roast. You'll see that the beans are rotating really nicely.
Turning color a little bit.
Exactly. Nothing's sitting too still.
Right.
But they're not blowing everywhere.
Right.
That means we're getting more and more heat staying in, but that's still distributing evenly.
Right.
And so we're getting close. As you can see, they went from this nice green. We're at 300 degrees bean temperature from this probe. About 300 to 320 degrees, we should see that green turn to a pale yellow.
Right.
Which is what we call the yellow point.
For sure.
And I'm going to, in fact, mark that right here on Artisan for us. Mark that about there.
And I'm smelling it. It's changing a little bit smell-wise, too.
Exactly. We're kind of getting this, like, wet grass, hay kind of smell going on.
Yeah.
That's really good. That means the beans are doing what we want them to do.
Okay. Makes sense.
So now, once we hit yellow point, we're moving into the next phase of the roast called the drying phase. The Maillard phase.
Right.
Or caramelization phase.
Right.
We're breaking down some of those more complex compounds within the beans so that they can be developed later.
Right.
It's a really important part of the roast. We don't want to go too fast through it. So I like where my fan's at, but I need a little more heat. I'm going to bump my power to 3. So now I'm introducing some more heat just from the heating element. Still got plenty of movement room in there.
Now, how gradually are you trying to raise the heat? Are you hitting these beans fast with heat, or are you trying to gradually raise them up?
Well, roasting in an air roaster is very different from like a commercial drum roaster or even a home drum roaster, because the air is the thing. Whereas in a drum roaster, you're getting the air plus that material, all that heat from the metal in the drum. Right? So we don't want to just blast it and not have enough movement, or we're going to fly through the roast.
That makes sense.
What's going to happen is the outside of the bean will be brown and roasted. The inside will still be green.
I see.
So like a steak that's very rare in the middle. That's not good when it comes to coffee.
Right.
We want it well done.
Right.
All the way through. So I'm going to add a little more power here. Keep the heat moving up. Folks at home, the bean temperature probe is reading 355, and our chamber is at 425. So we're again staying well ahead of the beans from the air going in.
Right.
If they equalize and normalize, the beans will stop increasing in tip.
For sure.
We have to keep it ahead.
Okay. So what temperature can they expect to get first crack on most beans?
Depends on your system. Some roasters are a little wired with different probes and not, but this one is going to be fairly close to a commercial roaster. We should hear it between 385 and 400 of the bean temperature again, not the chamber temp.
Right. So if they experience first crack sooner, or let's say earlier than 380, or if they experience it after 390 to 400, like what if they get first crack around 405? What's going on there?
Some beans do take a little longer. I wouldn't get worried until I'm about like 410, 415. If I'm still not hearing first crack, there's a problem. Something's going on. I haven't built enough momentum into the system.
Makes sense.
Yep. And what we really want to hear is a nice rolling first crack. What I call an active first crack. We don't want to just hear a handful of them. We want to hear it like a machine gun.
Okay, gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah. So we're getting pretty close to that first crack temperature. We've got 380 on our bean temp, 450 in the chamber, and we're just coming up to 7 minutes into the roast.
Okay.
It's about perfectly what I like to see.
Okay.
We should hear it very shortly here. I'm going to add just a little more heat in the system by raising the power one more notch.
Right.
So for folks who can't see the display, we're now at fan 4 and power 5.
Right.
So we kind of flipped the switch. We made the numbers kind of meet in the middle at this point.
Okay. Now, what are you looking for as far as curve when you're monitoring the curve on Artisan? What are some key indicators for you?
Well, don't want to interrupt you, but I think we're about to find first crack.
Right.
Yep. I just heard our first couple pops. There it goes.
Okay. There they are. There we go.
Hopefully the mic is picking it up.
We hit first crack around 397.
Right. Which was 7 minutes and 30 seconds-ish into our roast.
Okay, makes sense.
Now, again, we only want to go about 45 seconds into development. That's going to really help maintain as much berry as possible. We don't want to push it too far out of development. And we also don't want our bean temp to really go past about 410, and even that is pushing it.
Okay.
So, we're at 405 on our bean temp. We're coming up right there. All right, so that's how fast it happens, folks.
So what are you doing here? That switch.
Exactly. So now that we're done roasting, I need to cool the beans as quickly as possible.
Right.
You know, if you're grilling a steak at home, right? Once you take it off the grill, it keeps cooking for another 5 minutes.
Makes sense. Gotcha.
We're building that momentum in, and now we want to take the momentum out as quickly as possible.
Awesome.
So I set it to cool, and we're pushing the fan as fast as we can to stop the roast immediately.
And that's it.
That's it.
Awesome.
8 minutes, and we're done, except for cooling.
That easy, folks. Right there.